All right, everybody. Welcome to another Living Freestyle Game Dev live stream, real-time dev live stream. We do these twice a week. We're answering your questions in Unreal Engine about blueprints, visual scripting, game development, virtual production, virtual reality, augmented reality, all the cool stuff. My name's Kevin. We're doing these twice a week. Right now, check the schedule, obviously, but right now we're shooting for 11:30 on Mondays and Wednesdays, although next week, check the schedule because we're going to move Wednesday to Thursday. So next week, Sunday and Thursday, but 11:30 Pacific Standard Time. As I said, my name is Kevin. I currently work as a senior principal tech artist at Riot Games in R&D. So I get to do a lot of really cool stuff in Unreal at work every day, but there's a lot I don't know, and so this is a chance for one, hopefully us to maybe help stumble through some of your questions together, and then I also end up learning a whole lot from everything that you all are asking about, which is a lot of fun. I'm just finishing getting the stream set up. Bush, welcome to the chat. Hopefully you came with your Unreal questions today. If not, just thanks for hopping in. I'd be curious what you're working on as well. I'm also doing, just as a heads up, I'm also doing kind of like a case study, a rebranding. We're taking a look at, calling this the Unreal Engine Q&A is sort of a little flat. So just for kicks, if you have thoughts on any of the following, we're doing a case study on a couple new titles. One we've got on the Novice to Ninja, Ask a Dev, Zero to Hero live stream, Noob No More, and the Q&A quest. So we're just trying out a couple different things to see if any of those make sense. We can also just keep it simple, the freestyle real-time live stream. If you have thoughts on that, throw them in the comments or throw them in the chat, and we'll see what people are interested in being a part of. So as always, thank you to all of you for hopping in and being part of this community. I took a look. I did not have, even though we've been answering questions, I've also been streaming in Discord as well lately, usually later at nights when I finally get a chance to log in, and basically I'm just streaming as I work, and we've been hanging out answering questions in there as well. So thanks for everybody who's been hopping in on Discord too. Looks like some of our helped get Sergio and some of his shadow stuff set up, and I know we got some Dash stuff working for Lucian, all kinds of stuff. So, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right. Let's hop into Unreal while we wait for questions. As always, questions take priority. So if you have an Unreal question, a game dev question, any of those kinds of things, I'm happy to interrupt whatever it is I'm doing and take a look at that. So while we wait, a quick little dev update. I have done a pretty big pivot. I am actually not even streaming my audio. I'm actually going to give this whole platformer thing a try just for fun. It's actually been a ton of fun so far. I'll kind of show you where we're at. We've got our character. We're running around. Hold on, let me get rid of some of these breakpoints. We're running around. We can shoot. It's interesting because I'm doing that. It's kind of fun. I'm doing this as an ability-based platformer. So I'm reusing all the code from a third-person shooter that we've been building using the Lyra kind of base platform, but we can jump. That's one of my abilities. We can shoot. We can die. You'll even notice that even the deaths have a lot of similar stuff because we haven't re-skinned them to be platformer specific, but because our enemies also have the ability to respawn, you'll notice that they respawn and come back. So we got damage numbers, we got all kinds of stuff. A bunch of this stuff we're not going to keep. We're not going to keep for a platformer, but it's really cool and it's been really fun to work through. Now, a couple questions that have come out as a result of this, and some of them are more art related. So let's start with question one. You'll notice here in my foreground, if I zoom in, hold on, let me get my mouse. Bush 1G, how's the audio? Are we doing all right? Where's our Facebook crew this morning? Everybody's missing. Okay. So you'll notice that I have a pretty clean outline here right now on this character, or on this asset. And let's see here. Let's just turn this off so you can see it. You don't see any kind of borders. Well, there's an interesting thing we found where here's the question. What do I do if all of my sprites have white outlines? Now this is kind of a common question. I've seen this happen in a lot of art tools, chasing the pre-molt art outline. So let's take a look at this. Right now we have our forest. What am I looking for? Here's our textures. These are all of our trees. This is our forest foreground. Okay, so you can see in here, it looks like a pretty clean picture. But what I want to point out here is right now this is being imported from a PNG. I'm going to switch this. I'm going to switch this back to be the original way I brought this in, which was through Photoshop. So if I just open this in Photoshop, or not in Photoshop, but as the... Did we just crash Unreal? No. Okay, cool. And then we click on re-import. See this white outline? This was driving me insane. I could not figure out where this is coming from. And you don't necessarily notice it here when you first import. You think everything's fine. Then you hop in your level. And let's see here. We've done that. I think we need to regenerate. We need to regenerate our asset. Hold on. So let's check that out. Go back here. And this is being used by our sprite. Okay, so here's our white outline, our sprite. And let's check to see if we just drag one of these in and zoom in. You'll notice the white outline is pretty pronounced here. Okay, and it absolutely drives me nuts. Now, there's a couple things. This is a translucent lit material, and as a result of that, what's happening is this white outline. If you've ever worked in Photoshop with LUTs and everything like that, it's a pretty common problem. They'll say it comes from the pre-molt. Bottom line, long story short, the answer to the question is I could not find a way in any of the import settings or anything like that to get rid of this white outline. What worked was exporting my file from Photoshop as a PNG first. Then importing the PNG, it comes in, it takes care of all the pre-molt issues, and all this stuff is gone. So I've added a step to my workflow where I'm not importing PSD files directly because I can't figure out proper pre-molt settings to get rid of these white outlines. There is a material guru at work, I may ask. But in the meantime, this at least got rid of this white outline, so I was able to actually focus and do the stuff that I wanted to do. So that's kind of a quick dev update. I'm actually going to change this back now to reference the PNG to get rid of this outline. What is going on with my voice? So here's the PNG. You'll notice here, that's before we do this, let's just zoom in so we can. Wow, Unreal is struggling today. Okay, so if we zoom in before we do this import, we change to the PNG and we click re-import. You'll notice that white outline is gone. And that makes me much happier, which is great. Okay, so now when we play, we've got no white outline, which is awesome. So that kind of answers that question. I'm trying to think about the other questions that we've been answering over a period of time. as we've been working through stuff in Discord. Let me just double check Discord real quick and see what we have. We talked about timeline actors, why you can't use them in the gameplay ability system. Ultimately, what ended up working for Lucian's dash was a constant force input, which with the right vector. But we did have a great conversation around the ability to use, like, let's say we have a character. So the question is, how do we make a character dash a certain distance in space? If you look at the Lyra example, is using a GA hero dash. Let's bring it up right here. I'll show you what it looks like, just so you can see it. If we just do a hero dash. So here's the hero dash. All they're doing in here is they're applying a root motion constant force. Now, the way this works is it literally applies a force, and it's right back to your physics class from high school, where rate times time equals distance. So depending on how strong the force is, the duration of the force and the direction, that's how you end up getting to where you get to. So in this particular case, what we ended up doing was figuring out kind of the right amount of math for there to be kind of to go the right distance. Now, the question came up though, what if you want to actually set the distance? So there's two potential options there. One is figure out the math, right? Rate times time, distance, all that stuff. The other one is, why not use root motion with animation? And then what you would do in this ability is, rather than applying root motion here in this step, what you would do is you would play like an animation montage, and you don't have to wait. You could just play the animation montage, and then when it's complete, you finish your ability. Now, there's an interesting thing about the workflow differences there. One is, with animation, you're going to get explicit control on where or how far your character dashes. So as your character dashes, you know exactly how far it's going to go. The downside is, you fast forward, your animator or you make the length dash that you think you want, and then what you do is you go in and you realize that it's too far, or it's too slow, or it's too fast. In order to make the fix, what you have to do is you have to go back to animation, take all of the reanimate it, re-export it, and bring that in. Now, there's some caveats there. It is possible. So if we drag off of here, so what you could do is you could play your montage, change your play rate, and then maybe not get as far along in the montage before canceling out, as an example. But at that point, you're kind of doing the math as well. So point is, you have to go back, and so the iteration loop becomes tougher, but you get, pretty micro, minute, and explicit control of what your character is doing during that dash. Now, the flip side of just using this constant force, as I said, is figuring out the math. Now, the way I've seen this handled though is, if you figure out the math once, you can use curves to drive this stuff, and then you get a much more designer controlled thing. So for example, if you have a new ability that allows you to dash twice as far, I don't have to go back to animation, get a new animation, and do all that stuff. As the designer, I can just hop in and double the distance, double the time, whatever it is, and I will end up with what I want to in my dash. So it's a lot more controllable on the design side. So I thought that was a really cool conversation and exploration that we were doing around getting our dashes to roll the way we wanted them to. Other than that, things have been fairly quiet on the question front. So, as always, when we are doing these live streams, if there are no questions, I will just hang out and I will kind of ask my own questions and answer my own questions as I'm working towards my own working prototype, which right now is working towards this guy. Now, the cool thing here is we've come a long ways. So for example, let's talk about Death Blossom. Does anybody know what that reference is? Death Blossom. So I have an ability called Death Blossom. It looks like a Death Blossom, what we did was, the way this ability works, if we're going to break it down, is it basically, when the character fires, it spawns a projectile, and the projectile gets set to homing. And the homing projectile will hone in on the enemies, and if they're there, they'll get killed. Now, there's a couple things about this where if there is no enemy, what does the projectile do? And so making it so that it would kind of just make some kind of sense, but maybe not do anything that would affect the level as the player's playing, so you can still do this. It's a little excessive right now overall, but whatever. So let's just break this down. So that is something that we built between the last time you all saw this and stuff. Let's see here. So we've got our abilities, and in our abilities we have weapon attack base. All right, and weapon attack base is a fairly standard ability. It activates, it has a bunch of stuff, checks a few things, and then we probably don't need this. Some of this we're still cleaning up from copying over from a third-person shooter, which is going to be really cool. We're going to be able to make, once this code base is ready, we're going to be able to make third-person shooters, 2D platformers, everything, all using the same ability system and cool stuff. Can't see anything. We got a problem with our Twitch stream apparently. It shows okay for me. Hold on. Let me check on my phone. Twitch. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh, of course I have to log in. Let's see here. The trick is remembering my login. All right. I cannot seem to log in, so let's try this a different way. Let's try a different browser. Twitch. And let's look for...
Should I do...
Living Freestyle. Currently shows as live. Nope, it's not black for me in Bing or on the thing. So I'm not sure what's going on. Razor Gods 420, but something's going on because it's definitely working on both Bing and the other one. Bush, I'm not sure if you can chime in if it's weird, but it also you can also check it out here. Let me give you the YouTube link too. You can hop in over on YouTube. Let's see. How do I... Here we go. Copy this, close this, throw this in the chat. Here you go. This is the YouTube link. See if that one works a little bit better for you. Saw some people hop in on YouTube. Welcome. Okay, so back to what we were talking about. We're talking about creating a Death Blossom for our platformer, and we kind of do our casting. We get our targets. This is about is getting all of our targets. A bunch of this stuff is going to go away. I left it in here because I may potentially change the way this ability works so that if you have multiple enemies in the scene, it can basically use the for loop to go through it. But anyways, and then what happens is it spawns our blossom. So we spawn our blossom, and then our blossom kind of handles everything. So let's take a look at the blossom. Our blossom is basically a grenade that we used from a previous, from our previous grenade stuff. There's our YouTube chat. Once again, remember your questions take priority. So if you have one, interrupt me at any time. So all this does is it basically spawns an actor and it basically sets it up as a homing projectile. Okay. And then as it travels through space, there's an on hit. If it hits something, it checks to see if it should detonate. And if it should, when it detonates, it goes through, it plays effects, it deactivates, it also applies damage over here as a gameplay effect. So here's our grenade gameplay effect damage. And then what happens is there's no target. If there's no target, it's fun because what happens is it will basically lerp in a velocity, so they just kind of fall to the ground and do nothing. So that's why when we first start, if we shoot, they just kind of randomly fall to the ground, and then when an enemy shows up, they'll spawn. So a couple things that I want to change. One, I would like it when our enemies die if the effect they play is different than when I die. So right now they're playing that one. If I walk over here when I die, I'm getting hit damage. I know it doesn't look like it, but anyway, so I die, I play that same effect, I respawned. So let's put a different effect on our enemy death. To do that, what we need to do is we need to take a look at our spawner, I believe is where we're doing that. Here's our spawn point. Oh, interesting. Where we have 2D hero death. That's what we're using. And that's being applied as part of our ability set for Zeraphine. So let's check to see if there's a way we can either make this. This applies the gameplay queue for death. Okay, so this is going to create a gameplay queue notify, which is going to be down here. Here's death. And this is going to do a bunch of stuff. Here's our spawning of the system. Okay, so let's do this. Let's see if we have the tag, has tag, and then for our enemies, currently have a tag called 2D enemy. Okay, so what we're going to do is on death, we're going to see if they have 2D enemy. And if this is true, I'm going to hold B while I press or left click, and that's going to give me a branch node for free. I'm not going to have to do any work to get it. And if this is true, what's going to happen is the system we're going to spawn is going to be different. Everything else will be the same. So it'd probably be cleaner if I set the system template as a variable. Let's do that. Let's promote this to a variable. And this is going to be spawn or system template. Sure, let's keep it system template. So what we'll do is we'll keep one of these, we'll keep all this stuff the same. We'll move this over to make room. This is going to go here. The same. We're going to plug in our system template to here. And when we come in, we are going to set our system template to be, that was a blink. And that was the psionic blink. So first we're going to come in here. Actually, we'll do this differently. Let's come into our true false. Let's break this just to keep this clean. We'll paste in our target actor. So if they have the tag for 2D enemy, we are going to set our system template to be the purple death. Otherwise, we'll set it to be this one. And in both cases, we will finish by spawning our particle system. Okay? So, and then what we want is, if it's false, we're going to keep that. If it's true, we're going to use the purple one. So let's do the dark magic one. All right, so check that all looks cool. Let's test it, see how we did. Check out our stuff from Perforce and go. So we're waiting for an enemy to spawn. That was purple. That totally worked. So now let's make sure we're still using the psionic. Yep. So we've successfully changed our death effects without casting, without doing anything like that, simply by checking to see if the character has a tag. And if another enemy or some other character spawns that doesn't have that tag, it's okay. It's still just going to play. It'll play the hero death effects, which is cool. So that's good. All right. So let's just do a quick check. I'm going to double check Discord again to see if anybody over there had some questions. Nope, looks like we're good to go. Okay. How about over on YouTube? You all have any questions? Any game dev? Any questions at all about that stuff, or any other projects you're working on for Unreal, blueprints, visual scripting, all that kind of stuff? I don't mind continuing to work on my stuff, but again, questions take priority. So, all right. So it looks like we got that. Looks like we have effects playing. Looks like our all this stuff is good. There's a couple things that we need to figure out that have been driving me nuts. But I'm warning you all, this is a rabbit hole of pain, if you will. So the problem is, we have two problems, okay? One is, you'll notice if I click, every time I click, I'm getting two this is a single click. Death Blossom should be one item. If I do multi-click, you can't see it because that's just how Death Blossom works. But when I click one time, I should see one particle or one blossom. But right now I'm seeing two. And this, I think something is going on with the input. So that's one thing. The other thing is, and what I think I'd rather try to figure out is our health bars. So what's going on with health bars? There is something weird about the indicator system that does not like this new project that I am trying to figure out. So let me show you the problem. First, you'll notice the enemy did not have a health bar. If we go back to our shooter, third-person shooter, which is here. Sure, let's save that for now. Okay, when we play in here, debug. Well, let me disable all my breakpoints so you can see. Okay, you'll notice that the enemy already has a health bar. I cannot for the life of me figure out why our 2D character doesn't have a health bar. I have been chasing this all night, and I'm close, I think. Unfortunately, there's or from what I can tell, it looks like the indicator is not getting added. So if I go, let me show you what I mean. This is just some live debugging troubleshooting. Let's see here. If I debug, where's my... I'd like to enable all breakpoints, please. Where are my breakpoints? Debug. Pause. pause, play. Whoa, I can't, for some reason I can't enable my breakpoints again? That's kind of wild. I wonder if I accidentally deleted all the breakpoints. Bummer. Okay, so whatever, I can recreate them. Basically, this is a worth... it took me a while to wrap my head around how health bars work in Lyra. And basically, it uses the indicator system. And the way that works is you have an indicator manager, from what I can tell, you have an indicator manager on the player, and then every enemy who spawns who wants to show you something says, I want to register an indicator with you, this is what it is, and it will add it to it. And it has its own behaviors and so on. So what happens is there's the indicator, there's the nameplate manager, and as you come in here, you'll see it basically goes through, it gets all of its stuff, it constructs the descriptors. This is where it's creating all of the widgets that it needs. And then what it does is it adds that to the indicator manager for the player, and then it gets added. Now, if we press play, you'll notice that we get our begin play on the nameplate source. That's fine. And then when our enemy spawns, we hit the begin play again on nameplate source. These are all the registering of stuff. And you'll notice that I hit this add indicator. All right. Now, when I do that, it goes into code, does a whole bunch of stuff in code. But ultimately, it basically adds a callback to add indicator notify, I believe it is. Okay. Which is, let me see if I can find it real quick. I was just searching for it, and we can always put this breakpoint back in. All indicators, indicator component. Here we go. I can put a breakpoint right here in the code and show you what this looks like in the code too. All right, so if we press play again, so we hit our begin play, then we spawn our character, then our enemy spawns, it begins our play, then we add the indicator. At this point, we should hit our breakpoint in code. We do. Now, this right here is what I'm talking about. When we look at this, this is the basically adding the indicator in code. When we look at this, you'll notice that we have two things that are being added to our indicator manager component. Okay, one is on indicator added and one is on indicator removed, and it's just basically all the information for the indicator descriptor, all those kinds of things. Okay, so let's just play through that. All right, and we're going to stop. Now when we stop, when we go back to and we run this exact same test with the 2D platformer, let's go back, and I press play. First off, the fact that the first character didn't begin play seems suspect to me. And now we're spawning our enemy. There's our begin play. This is where we're adding the indicator. However, when we hit the breakpoint in code, you'll notice that this, look at that, on indicator added is empty, and on indicator removed is also empty. So for some reason, these are not getting what they need to get. And as a result of that, we are not seeing our enemy health bars, which is sort of driving me nuts. So what we need to figure out is why. And basically what I was looking at was I was trying to figure out, I think there might be something to do with the components that get registered. These are primary asset types. Here we go, this adds components. So in this plugin, theoretically, every character 2D default should get this Lyra indicator manager component. Okay, is that the same for our third-person shooter? They don't even add that stuff here. So here's the new question. Where is the indicator manager component getting added for the third-person shooter? It's a fair question. See if we can answer. Hero data. Shooter mannequin. Third-person shooter. These are our tag relationships and these are inputs. I don't think that's going to be it. So it's on the hero data. It's not going to be in the ability set. I would think it would be in the standard what do they call it? LAS standard. Here's our standard components for the shooter game. Let's see what we got in here. There it is. There's a nameplate manager right there. Okay. So I believe this is where this is getting added. If we look at this and we look at where this is used in our reference viewer, this is being used in each of the individual experience blueprints. That's what these all are. So the one that we're currently in right now, if we edit this, you'll notice that in the action sets, one of those is the standard components. All right, so let's see if that is reflected for our 2D character. So first off, Lyra indicator manager component, nameplate manager component. No, those are two different things. So do we have a nameplate manager component? That's a really good question. Well, let's go check. Down here in our 2D character game, we have system experiences. So here's our experience, I believe, and it has the standard components in it. And if we look at our standard components for Seraphine, we do have a nameplate manager. It's right here. So that looks to be the same to me. We have Niagara number pop-ups, quick bar, nameplate manager, and a nameplate source. Interesting. .2D enemy base is our source. 2D. Could change this character 2D default. That would be fine. So these look to be the same. The only difference is we've got a quick bar component that we don't have here. And I have a hard time buying that that is going to be what is causing the problem there. So this indicator manager component, this is interesting for me. Why are we adding this here in the plugin? Asset manager. We have a controller. That's the bot controller. We have our user-facing experience definition. That's our playlists. Okay. we have our Lyra experience definition with 3 directories in it, okay? So all right, so the third person shooter, going back again, we have no actions, but yet for Seraphine's adventure, or whatever we want to call this, the 2D platformer, we have 3 input actions, which is kind of weird. And then for the asset managers, we have 1, 2, 5, and 5. So the asset managers are the same. It's just these inputs that are different. The input configs, components, and the game queue paths. And the components are this indicator manager component. Let's try that. I want to see if we just put it on the hero. There's our begin play. I don't think we need this one. We know we're hitting that one. That's fine. This is our add. This is the this. Empty still. Debug. Disable all breakpoints. So we are on a scavenger hunt. Lucian, you're late this time around. Everything been going so far? So Lucian's asking how everything's going. Doing all right. We've separated out so we have different effects playing on our enemy deaths versus hero deaths. A couple things like that. But right now I'm just chasing why our health bars aren't showing up. They work fine in the third-person shooter. They don't work so fine in the 2D platformer. So in the absence of questions, that's what we're chasing down right now. So if you got anything, hit me. Okay, so let's see here. Let's try a couple things. I don't know why we need this input config. So we're going to, well, you know what? First, let's just get rid of this component. Okay. Does anything change? Everything still works. That's good. Okay. And the gameplay queue path I think we do need, because that was giving us reference errors. Oh, actually, you know what? No, it wasn't. I had to add it to the project, so let's get rid of that and see if we still have problems. Yeah, totally still works. So that's not something we need either. Just deleting stuff we don't need. Do we need the input? I can't imagine we do, because this is just the default keyboard mouse from, oh, it's the one from Seraphine's Quest. So, all right, we're going to keep that. I don't think that should be hurting us. All right? And the rest of this stuff should be the same as this. Pretty clean. The only difference is the input config. So we have our experience definitions, player mappable input config, our user facing and our experience action sets. Our experience action set is those are just the different experiences. Cool. So that takes care of that. The controller we have here is a bot controller and a bot creation component. So all that should be good. Okay. So let's go back to our nameplate manager. Let's see if we're still hitting this add indicator. We are. we are still hitting that. And then over here, we're still hitting this. Once we step through that, we are. If we look at this, so we haven't broken anything any more than it was. So we're back to where we were, which is nice, I guess, without breaking anything in the sense that we're still broken. And we have our on indicator added, on indicator removed as being empty. There's got to be something about our hero pawn that is causing this problem. Characters, heroes, reference viewer, browse to asset. Okay, so this lives in characters. We have paper character default and character default. So let's take a look at this. I don't see anything crazy there. Nothing there. Pawn extension is a Lyra pawn extension. Looks good. And if we look at our paper character default, nothing crazy here. All right, and if we reference this, what are we looking for? We're looking for, so here's our enemy. This should be a child of our enemy, and then here's our hero. So let's edit this guy. We have our health component. We even threw in this hero just to make sure that that was not the problem. I don't think I can add the manager. Nameplate manager component. Is that the one that I wanted? Interesting. Still empty, so it's not going to work. Holy goodness. Okay, so we got a question. Thank you, Lucian, for saving me because this has been a rabbit hole. How do you set up an attribute to affect other attributes within gas and other variables outside gas, such as the character's movement speed, jump height, etc.? Okay, hold on a second. I'm gonna have to read that again. Okay. Okay, how do you set up an attribute to affect other attributes within gas and other variables outside gas? So I'm gonna need some help understanding this one. So you have a character's movement speed, jump height, etc. What you want to do is you want to be able to change the jump height based on what? Like, just take one of these. Let's say we're trying to change our character's jump height. What is it how is it you're trying to change it, or where are you trying to change it so that I can try to wrap my head around the question? I think I have an idea of what the answer is. Okay, so for example, a good example is damage. How is it we change damage depending on what it is that you're hitting somebody with? And the way that's done is that's done with the gameplay effect. Right, so it damages the exact same thing. So depending on the level of your character or the level of the weapon that you're using or whatever, that can affect the amount of damage that's done. So in the case of our Blossom, when it detonates, it applies a gameplay effect. Okay, and the gameplay effect factors that in. So for example, it's just the way gameplay effect works, but basically the gameplay effect at the bottom, depending on the tags, etc. It uses base damage, but then you can change the amount using the float magnitude. So for example, I could change this to 1,000, and then every single character would die on the first shot. If I just simply change this to 1,000 and play now, the character will die on the first shot. The enemy, that is. Let me get rid of this breakpoint. And this one too. We know that doesn't work. See, 944 damage. Now, there's some interesting questions like, why is that 944 and not the other one? But I'll explain that in a second. But so if we go back, and we go back to our game effect for the grenade, and we change it to 10, when we run this, we're not doing any damage yet. Why is that? This is because the character has a shield that you cannot see yet. So don't get confused by that. All right, now we're starting to do some damage. So we're doing 10 at a shot. So I'm just basically changing that by affecting this magnitude. Now I believe in the Blossom blueprint, I can also, if I change this level, does that change the damage amount? Still doing 10. I think there's another one of these that has a magnitude to it that allows you to change the magnitude on the way in. Oh yeah, so now we're not doing any damage. So basically, if our level's 1, oh, is this in a lookup table? Is that what this is? Okay, hold on. We'll sort this out. Interesting. So if we go to level 0, one more try. I think this is also going to be nothing. Nope, there we go. So we're back to this. And if we go to level 0.5, where are we at here? There you go. So now we have less. So by changing the amount there, we're changing how much damage we're doing. And this is determined by a curve. Okay, so if you look at the curve for the frost grenade damage, and we're mixing this, we need to update this. We shouldn't be mixing and matching these things. But this is the damage curve for the frost grenade. This was originally intended to be used as a distance-based attenuation amount of damage. So if you were right on top of the grenade, you got full damage. If you were out further away from the grenade, you got less damage. And it's 0 to 1, so it can be normalized so that you can determine at runtime. So let's just say this. Let's take an example. I create a grenade and I throw the grenade, and if you're standing right on top of it, I want you to take full damage. If you're standing 100 units away, I want you to take no damage. All right. Then I level up the grenade. Now, if you're standing anywhere within, the first, it looks like, let's say 100 units, you take full damage, and 1,000 units, you don't take any damage. All I have to do is multiply this by 1,000, and I can change how that works just by leveling up my grenade. So there are multiple axes in which you can use to change the amount of damage being done based on the gameplay effect. So there's the float magnitude, the curve damage. You can use I believe you can use a table. Yeah. So, and then all this feeds in. So, and you can change it to be additive, scalable, attribute based, all these kinds of things. So I think the answer to your question is gameplay effects. I'll change this back to, let's say, sure, we'll go back to 100. Where is this? So we need to change this. Oh, I see what happened. We copied our damage over to a grenade because we did make a grenade in the platformer, but we did not create a separate gameplay effect for Death Blossom. So let's do this. Let's copy that here, and we're going to call this gameplay effect Damage Blossom so that we can control it a little bit better. And then what we're going to do in here is to clean this up. We're not going to use this curve for the frost grenade. That's ridiculous. We need to get the curve down into Blossom. And we would probably generalize this, like all ranged weapons work on the same curve or something. But for now, let's just change this to the curve Blossom damage. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change this to use the Blossom damage curve instead. And we'll compile that. And then what we'll do is we'll change the Blossom damage curve to go, let's go 0, 0, and let's go 1, 1. So I can control this, and let's flatten out this tangent. You know what, let's just make it linear. So it's pretty straightforward. I know exactly what's happening. So now our curve is linear. Now we need to update the Blossom to apply the Blossom damage gameplay effect. Blossom. So here's the damage. Now, this is the trick. Based on the changes we made our curve go from 0 to 1. We changed our base damage amount to 100. If I give it a level of 0.5, we should now be doing 50 damage per hit. So let's go see. There's 50. So if I want to do 25 damage, I can change this to be 0.25, 0.25, nope, 0.25, okay? And now what's going to happen is when the blossoms hit, 25 damage. So what's happening is it's basically taking whatever value I'm feeding into the magnitude, comparing it to a curve, and then using that curve to determine what percentage of damage to do. So I think that is at least one answer to a way to do what you're talking about. Hopefully that is helpful. And this is using the distance divided by the radius to figure out. So this is the theory behind this before was it was using the distance divided by the radius to normalize it to figure out how much damage you should do. So that if the radius was 100 and you were at the edge of the radius, you got no damage. If the radius is 1,000, you're at the edge of the radius, also no damage. However, this is now, where are we? This is in Blossom. I'm going to keep this here because the reason being is I could see a future where what happens is as a blossom goes out, if it hits the ground, it doesn't hit the target. Like imagine rather than an actual like homing targeted blossom, imagine like just a rain, make it rain type thing. As the projectile comes down, hits the ground, when it explodes, each one of those explosions has a radius. So maybe that would be a reason to potentially keep that. So I'm going to keep that there as a side note that I may bring that back later, but for now I'll just keep it at, we're doing 20 damage per hit, and we'll go from there. So and the reason you saw the first 10 is because, again, the character has a shield of 50 that right now is not being visualized, so you don't know it. So the first 2 hits do 40. The next hit does 10 of shield damage and 10 of regular damage. So what? That's 40. And then the next one, see the 10, 20? The 10 of the 10 points of damage from the first projectile took out the remaining shield, and the last 10 actually did damage. So now I'm actually doing real damage until we get to 0. So, and one day, if I ever figure out the health bar problem, we will be able to display a health bar and you'll be able to see what's going on with that. Okay, y'all. We're basically at the end of our time for today for the questions and stuff. So everybody who hopped in, a bunch of first-time people, Bush, Razor Gods, thanks for hopping in. Hopefully you were able to check that stuff out on YouTube. I'm not sure what was happening for you. Again, don't forget, if you have thoughts on some of the potential new ideas for naming of our stream, whether it be, like I said, Noob to Ninja, Ask a Dev. There were a bunch of ones that I threw out at the beginning of the stream. Throw those down in the comments. Once again, my name's Kevin. Thanks for hopping in. Thanks for your time. And Lucian, as always, thanks for the questions. We do have Discord. Check out Discord. We do have chats. I'm going to be posting the stream schedule for next week as soon as I get a chance here. Probably I'll post it by Friday. But general gist is we're doing Sunday and Thursday next week. I need to move Wednesday to Thursday for a day, just as a heads up for everybody. So. But I will post that on Twitter. It will be also updated in Twitch and YouTube as well, as you come in. Anybody else hanging out in the wings? Thanks for being part of the community. It was awesome seeing you all today. Have a great rest of your week, and I will catch you all in the next stream.